Story number 8, and the final lucky number 8 ball story that made it to the media this week. Is President Trump a whistleblower or a lawbreaker? The reason why the story surfaced at the top is because if you have checked out all the top stories that made it this week, we look at President Trump and we look at his administration, we look at the pros and cons, but we fail to realize that sometimes everything has a purpose. Every person has a purpose, everything has a purpose, everybody has a purpose. And there may be a good reason why we see what we're seeing happening on this scale. Some people never see the reasoning behind a smack in the face, a whistleblower, somebody who just spills the beans on everybody. But some people who look back and they study the details and fine prints, they start to find out, or they start to see the what is unveiled inside of this. We can look at what has been addressed in this Trump administration. I'm going to list some stories. Russia has been addressed. Citizens cheating on their taxes, which there are few Americans that cheat on their taxes. There's a study that shows that Americans are pretty faithful at paying their taxes. But the reason why we're looking at this is because we see that taxes was a main issue. Trump cut taxes, he didn't release his tax information. Businesses release their tax information. A lot of political candidates have released their tax information. Prostitutes, we saw this in this administration. We see how they could affect not only just the people in the big house, but the people in the little house as well. Foreign and political affairs, we've seen that addressed in this administration. China trade wars. These are things that have been going on for years, but have never been addressed. They've been swept under the rugs. We've seen women constantly trying to make their voice heard, saying, hey, I do not want to have to take my clothes off to pay my college bills. I do not want to have to do this, but they do it. And they've even gotten to the big house, the White House. So you look at the story, what has happened in this administration, and you look at the poetry of it. We may have a president that is unknowingly whistleblowing on everybody. But is he a lawbreaker? Does he even know what the law is? Is he just a businessman, a small squirrel trying to get a nut? These things are being revealed. According to one report, it appears that Americans are not only getting the taste of what is actually at stake, but they're getting the taste of being informed because of what is actually happening. That means that it's taking people to ruffle your feathers. I think it was Jim Comey who said that if something about if Donald Trump is impeached, that Americans will be let off the hook. So people often think that the Library of Congress is unutilized. That means that people in Congress are keeping an eye on you. They're keeping an eye on what you're doing. They're keeping an eye on your behavior. And they're seeing if you're a loyal citizen or loyal to your country. Is this a test of time? Is this all one big show to get you actively involved in what you should be involved in, and that's being a civil servant and actively involved in your country? Americans are split on impeachment inquiry. The reason why this is in the details. The reason why Americans are split is because that means that we're divided on something, we're polarized on something that we may not understand. Some people say that this president is a nasty, filthy, rotten businessman. But could that be what we need to realize our fullest potential as Americans? Trump says whoever provided whistleblower information is close to a spy. We've heard this president make talking points. Do we need to listen? Is he saying something that is right? The media. Is the media run by Democrats? Or do they have more power to their punch than the average thinking Americans? Does America have a race issue? Do these issues need to be addressed? You look at this and all of its substance, all of its truth-telling, ruffling of the feathers. Do we need this? Does controversy bring out the truth in the average person. Do we need to see this happening in the White House? And that's what people will be talking about. Does this abuse that we're seeing in Congress need to happen to get things revealed, to find out the players? If this would have never happened, would we have ever known about Biden's son dealing with Ukraine? Do these things need to be addressed? Now you're starting to see how things are balancing themselves out and why there is checks and balances. Did the White House try to cover up details of Trump-Ukraine, the phone call? Seeing something like this surface out now. I think the best way to put this is, when you're using taxpayer dollars to fund these things, is it worth funding an exotic show to reveal the truth? Is it worth it to pay for a reality show? Or do you want to see your tax dollars go to something a bit more constructive, like building roads, building bridges, investing in education, and getting people the proper funding without politicians spending it on stuff like this? This is a story, and this is why we look at this, the poetry of story number 8. Is Trump a whistleblower or a lawbreaker? That's why this story is what it is, and it's revealing the truth about Americans and about where we stand in this issue. Trump slams mainstream media as scum and animals during a private event as he criticized the whistleblower. This story is not only developing, but it is definitely a story that we need to keep an eye on, and a story that we have to understand when we get close to the next election. Is this a show? Is this done on purpose? Does this man know what he's doing? Is he really this clever, really this smart to bring these things to light? Was he bribing this? When we look at the transcript, we read it in all of its details. Do we need this? Is it time for this? There's a reality going on the ground, and that is the fact that there are people suffering in this country. They are suffering from lack of money, lack of wealth, lack of education. Some say the homeless are fat, but some of them are on drugs. There's drugs being infiltrated that are coming in this country. We've had corrupt politicians. We've had corrupt leaders for a long time. We've had money been misused, misutilized. Has Trump brought that to light? Do you give him credit for that? Do you give the Obama administration credit? Do you give the Bush administration credit? Or just have we reached a breaking point in this representative democracy where we're getting what we deserve, and that's this leadership? These are things that will be evaluated in the upcoming weeks, and that's why story number 8 made its way in, and that's why it's there to get you to think, to get you to understand what being abused does to the child who later becomes the hero at the end of the story, or the mother who has to finally act and defend herself. When a country is being abused, it brings out the best, and right now you see people waking up. So was this needed? That's why it's hard to look at the story and the details, but it brings out some very odd, unbelievable, unreal facts of what is happening in the reality of the American system. And this is what we see. If this president is impeached, you will see things happen. You will start to hear there are two sides battling it out. And that's why I'm staying in the middle, trying to get the details of the story just for you. There are two sides battling it out in this debate and in this presidency, in this administration. And there's a right, the left, conservatives and liberals, but there are people that are still caught in the middle. The working class, the poor, the disadvantaged, and the wealthy. People are saying that the only way to save this is through money. It may be through the heart of the average American to understand what is actually going on in this system, and it's waking a lot of people up. Controversy sometimes is the best medicine for people who are losing out on the big picture, people who were never for or never understood the founding principles of this country, and that's why story number 8 made it to the top 8. You're in the Mediator with me, Brother West. I want to thank you for tuning in this week. Those are our top 8 stories and our top 8 headlines about news stories. If you want to be a contributor, METHOD, the number 8, INC.com. Bethany.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. I want to say thank you to all the news outlets, journalists that keep us informed. You deserve all the credit. I'm just a mediator. Well, thank you all for tuning in. And please, if you have time, go to the website, check out the stories that I almost made it or didn't make it in. Or if you want to be a contributor, help out anyway. METHOD, the number at INC.com, Bethany.com, where you can buy something, click on something, watch something, read something, or just sponsor a program. Thank you for tuning to the Mediator this week with me, Brian West. I am out of here. Have a good week.
If you need help, then dial your operator.
Have no fear, fellow citizens. The Mediator is here.